Chapter 2 of Molly Make Believe. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Molly Make Believe by Eleanor Hallowell Abbott. Chapter 2. Turning nervously back to the box's wrapping paper, Stanton read once more the perfectly plain, perfectly unmistakable name and address, his own, repeated in absolute duplicate on the envelope. Quicker than his mental comprehension, mere physical embarrassment began to flush across his cheekbones. Then suddenly the whole truth dawned on him. The first installment of his serial love letter had arrived. "But I thought it would be typewritten," he stammered miserably to himself. "I thought it would be a hectograph kind of a thing. Why, hang it all, it's a real letter, and when I doubled my check and called for a special edition de luxe, I wasn't sitting up on my hind legs begging for real presents." "But, dear lad," persisted the pleasant, round, almost childish handwriting. "Dear lad, I could have cried yesterday when I got your letter telling me how sick you were. Yes. But crying wouldn't comfort you any, would it? So, just to send you right off quick something to prove that I'm thinking of you, here's a great rollicking woolly wrapper to keep you snug and warm this very night. I wonder if it would interest you any at all to know that it is made out of a most larksome outlaw up on my grandfather's sweet meadowed farm. A really truly black sheep that I've raised all my own sweaters and mittens on for the past 5 years. Only it takes 2 whole seasons to raise a blanket wrapper, so please be awfully much delighted with it. And oh, Mr. Sick Boy, when you look at the funny blurry colors, couldn't you just please pretend that the tinge of green is the flavor of pleasant pastures, and that the streak of red is the cardinal flower that blazed along the edge of the noisy brook? Good-bye, till tomorrow. Molly." With a face so altogether crowded with astonishment that there was no room left in it for pain, Stanton's lame fingers reached out inquisitively and patted the warm woolly fabric. "Nice old lammy," he acknowledged judicially. Then suddenly round the corners of his under lip a little bulky smile began to flicker. "Of course I'll save the letter for Cornelia," he protested, "but no one could really expect me to paste such a scrumptious blanket wrapper into a scrap-book." Laboriously wriggling his thinness and his coldness into the black sheep's luxuriant, irresponsible fleece, a bulging side pocket in the wrapper bruised his hip. Reaching down very temperishly to the pocket, he drew forth a small lace-trimmed handkerchief, knotted pudgily across a brimming handful of fir balsam needles. Like a scorching hot August breeze, the magic, woodsy fragrance crinkled through his nostrils. "These people certainly know how to play the game all right," he reasoned whimsically, noting even the consistent little letter M embroidered in one corner of the handkerchief. Then, because he was really very sick and really very tired, he snuggled down into the new blessed warmth and turned his gaunt cheek to the pillow and cupped his hand for sleep like a drowsy child with its nose and mouth burrowed eagerly down into the expectant draught. But the cup did not fill. Yet, scented deep in his curved, empty, balsam-scented fingers lurked, somehow, somewhere, the dregs of a wonderful dream. Boyhood with the hot, sweet flutter of summer woods, and the pillowing warmth of the soft, sun-baked earth, and the crackle of a twig, and the call of a bird, and the drone of a bee, and the great blue, blue mystery of the sky glinting down through a green latticed canopy overhead. For the first time in a whole cruel, tortuous week, he actually smiled his way into his morning nap. When he woke again, both the sun and the doctor were staring pleasantly into his face. "You look better," said the doctor, "and more than that, you don't look half so cussed cross." "Sure," grinned Stanton, with all the deceptive, undauntable optimism of the just awakened. "Nevertheless," continued the doctor more soberly, "there ought to be somebody a trifle more interested in you than the janitor to look after your food and your medicine, and all that. I'm going to send you a nurse." "Oh, no!" gasped Stanton. "I don't need one, and frankly I can't afford one." Shy as a girl, his eyes eluded the doctor's frank stare. "You see," he explained diffidently, "you see, I'm just engaged to be married, and though business is fairly good and all that, my being away from the office 6 or 8 weeks is going to cut like the deuce into my commissions. And roses cost such a horrid price last fall, and there seems to be a game law on diamonds this year; they practically fine you for buying them, and—" The doctor's face brightened irrelevantly. "Is she a Boston young lady?" he queried. "Oh, yes," beamed Stanton. "Good," said the doctor. "Then of course she can keep some sort of an eye on you. I'd like to see her. I'd like to talk with her, give her just a few general directions, as it were." A flush deeper than any mere love embarrassment spread suddenly over Stanton's face. "She isn't here," he acknowledged, with barely analyzable mortification. "She's just gone south." "Just gone south?" repeated the doctor. "You don't mean since you've been sick?" Stanton nodded with a rather wobbly grin, and the doctor changed the subject abruptly and busied himself quickly with the least bad-tasting medicine that he could concoct. Then, left alone once more with a short breakfast and a long morning, Stanton sank back gradually into a depression infinitely deeper than his pillows, in which he seemed to realize with bitter contrition that in some strange, unintentional manner his purely innocent, matter-of-fact statement that Cornelia had just gone south had assumed the gigantic disloyalty of a public proclamation that the lady of his choice was not quite up to the accepted standard of feminine intelligence or affections, though to save his life he could not recall any single glum word or gloomy gesture that could possibly have conveyed any such erroneous impression to the doctor. Why, Cornelia had to go south, he reasoned conscientiously. Every girl like Cornelia had to go south some time between November and March. How could any mere man even hope to keep rare, choice, exquisite creatures like that cooped up in a slushy, snowy New England city, when all the bright, gorgeous, rose-blooming South was waiting for them with open arms? Open arms! Apparently it was only climates that were allowed any such privileges with girls like Cornelia. Yet, after all, wasn't it just exactly that very quality of serene, dignified aloofness that had attracted him first to Cornelia among the score of freer-mannered girls of his acquaintance? Glumly reverting to his morning paper, he began to read and reread with dogged persistence each item of politics and foreign news, each gibbering advertisement. At noon the postman dropped some kind of a message through the slit in the door, but the plainly discernible green 1-cent stamp forbade any possible hope that it was a letter from the South. At 4 o'clock again someone thrust an offensive pink gas bill through the letter slide. At 6 o'clock Stanton stubbornly shut his eyes up perfectly tight and muffled his ears in the pillow so that he would not even know whether the postman came or not. The only thing that finally roused him to plain grown-up sense again was the joggle of the janitor's foot kicking mercilessly against the bed. "Here's your supper," growled the janitor. On the bare tin tray, tucked in between the cup of gruel and the slice of toast, loomed an envelope, a real, rather fat-looking envelope. Instantly from Stanton's mind vanished every conceivable sad thought concerning Cornelia. With his heart thumping like the heart of any love-sick schoolgirl, he reached out and grabbed what he supposed was Cornelia's letter. But it was postmarked Boston, and the handwriting was quite plainly the handwriting of the Serial Letter Company. Muttering an exclamation that was not altogether pretty, he threw the letter as far as he could throw it out into the middle of the floor, and turning back to his supper, began to crunch his toast furiously like a dragon crunching bones. At 9 o'clock he was still awake. At 10 o'clock he was still awake. At 11 o'clock he was still awake. At 12 o'clock he was still awake. At 1 o'clock he was almost crazy. By 1:15, as though fairly hypnotized, his eyes began to rivet themselves on the little bright spot in the rug where the serial letter lay gleaming whitely in a beam of electric light from the street. Finally, in one supreme childish impulse of petulant curiosity, he scrambled shiveringly out of his blankets with many "ohs" and "ouches," recaptured the letter, and took it growlingly back to his warm